Okay, so I've been avoiding this topic for a myriad of reasons. There's a few to just start off with right off the bat. I wanted to wait. I wanted to see what the outcome was. I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to see what was being done. I wanted to see if anything was being done. And I didn't want to just sit here and defend something that I didn't think deserved to be defended. Right? So that's the first thing. Next, on top of that, I didn't want to sit here and do this and people think that I was just doing it because it would get views or whatever and whatnot. I want to actually come at this correctly and discuss my opinion. Most of the things that I will state in this will be opinionated and not facts. There are some facts I will lay out, but again, most of the stuff is my opinion. So keep that in mind when you're hearing me talk, when you're hearing me say things about what's going on. These are just the way that I view it, the way that I think, and none of it is grounded in concrete. Just purely how I view things, except for the small bits and pieces that are fact. Okay, so going forward, let me start by saying this. There is a laundry list of complaints about this game. There are many things being said and many articles being written, and honestly, the articles that are coming out now is why I decided to go ahead and do it now. Because I got disheartened and I wasn't going to, but here's the thing. There's a lot of things being said that are being stretched, right? They're being exaggerated to make it seem worse because that's what you do when you want something to catch traction. You gravitate towards the bad thing. Like the old saying goes, there's no such thing as bad press. That much being said, let me flat out say this. Do I agree with a lot of the complaints that are being stated about Marvel Avengers and how it's being handled? Yes, I agree with the majority of them. The vast majority of them. There are actually, in fact, very few complaints that I've heard that I've just disregarded because they weren't legitimate in my eyes. And we'll go over a few of those as well as the ones I do agree with. So, first off, let's start with the ones I do agree with, right? Let's start on a good note, not on a just straight up downer note, because there are going to be some things that I say that people won't agree with and might cause them to stop watching the video, I guess. So, anyway, the game was launched in a state that it should not have been launched in. As you might have guessed, yes, I agree with this. They had a whole beta to get this washed out. They had a whole beta to get input from people, and people were actually giving them their input. It wasn't something that was hidden. It wasn't something that was just pushed off. The crazy thing about the beta is a lot of the glitches and bugs that we experienced, I say we because I was invested in this game, and I still am, to be honest, experienced during the live launch, we didn't experience during the beta, which is very odd. Now, going forward after the game was launched, and we have all these issues with the bugs and glitches, and I was not one of the lucky few who didn't have any issues. For 2 weeks straight, I couldn't even play the game because it would crash a minute or 2 minutes after opening. If I got lucky, it would crash in the middle of a mission, which, I mean, isn't really much luckier, but at least I got to do stuff, I suppose. So that was a major issue, and that was a major complaint, and it was a complaint that I understood completely. All the bugs going on, things not getting to be able to be done, people's levels getting reset, losing equipment, all of that stuff. That made complete sense to me. Like, yo, these are big issues that you need to fix promptly or else your game is doomed. Period. The end. There was no way around that, right? Like that was just it. That was the end all be all. These are issues that had to be fixed. So after which, Square and Crystal Dynamics decided, okay, we'll release a patch and we will start trying to patch these bugs and patch these issues. And they did start doing that. And I can honestly say in the beginning, I did appreciate that. That was a good thing. Hey, you're taking a step in the right direction. You got your consumer base complaining about these specific things, and you're trying to take the best foot forward and actually fix them. So here's one of the complaints that I do not agree with. At one point, they released a patch, and they also said that they're going to push Kate back because they needed to make sure that their game worked properly. Now, we had been complaining as a community about these bugs, about these issues that we couldn't actually play the game, so on and so forth. And then suddenly there was an outrage, an outroar, an outcry of people saying, oh, you can't push her back, you need to actually launch her, instead of focusing on the issues at hand. So that complaint to me has no real merit because if they released her, she would have been extremely buggy. And there was someone that actually pointed out, I can't take credit for this train of thought, but I agree with it, that if they had released Kate with her teleportation ability in the game when it was so buggy, so glitchy, that would have been heinous. That would have been horrific. She would have been a terrible character to play. There would have been too much going on and too much going wrong. However, on the inverse of that, on the opposite side of that, I do agree that they shouldn't have released the game that way. So they could have actually pushed Kate at the time that they were supposed to push her. That's true. That is very true. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper. So there are complaints that I don't agree with, like, God. Okay, so I have close to 200 hours into the game myself. I do. One of the complaints I don't really agree with is that the campaign is 11 hours and that's too short for $60. I don't agree with that. Because, in all honesty, an 11-hour campaign is not too short. We used to get campaigns way shorter than that for a higher price. Well, in most cases, the same price all the time. Like that was normal. When it started going into games being 20 hours long in their campaign, just normal runtime, that didn't happen for years upon years. Like the Bouncer, for example, is not that long of a campaign, or a game in general. There's not much you can really do after. It has a pretty decent, dope survival mode, but the fact of the matter is it's not a very long game. But we paid new price for that. And honestly, it's a good game. It really is for what it was doing, for what it was. So when people say that, I don't really agree with it. Now, if they bought the special edition and whatnot and paid like 80 to 90 to $100 and all this other stuff, yeah, okay, maybe I can agree there. Mind you, you got extra stuff, but there was that it's a bit different, you know. It's a bit way different. So I can actually kind of see that. On that same note, at that same token, I myself could not say that I didn't get my money's worth. I have almost 200 hours into the game, really close to 200 hours. I wouldn't be able to sit here and honestly say, okay, I didn't get my $60 worth, guys. I really didn't. I've spent this much time in the game, and of that time, personally, I have enjoyed that time. The only times I didn't enjoy was when the game was crashing and I couldn't play. So there's the caveat there. I actually couldn't play, so of course I didn't enjoy it. So I mean, that makes sense. Now the articles I was talking about earlier that actually kind of started rubbing me the wrong way, where I was like, I just can't hold my peace anymore. It's just getting kind of ridiculous because a lot of game journalists do this, and I hate this. If you guys remember this, there was a certain point in time where everything was Souls-like, right? Like journalists just flocked to this. It was just, oh, this is Souls-like. This game is Souls-like. Oh, this game is Souls-like. It could be Cooking Mama 3.0, and it's just a really hard difficulty. And if you don't do it right, your cake is gone. You can never have that same cake. And they're like, oh, this is Cooking Mama Rogue Souls-like. You just don't understand. It's just so difficult. It was ridiculous. And this is normal for game journalists. They flock to things. They flock to buzzwords, essentially. It's kind of like any other form of the media when it comes to news outlets. They flock to things that they know will get attention. And when it comes to gaming, that really irks me. That irritates me to no end. I'll be honest, it pisses me off. So with that, my issue started becoming when they said that Crystal Dynamics lost 68, I think it was million or billion, some crazy high number, dollar amount, you know, and then it went to 63. And then most recently, I think it's 48 or 43. I'd have to double check the numbers. My thing about that is, how does the number keep changing, guys? Like, how are y'all messing up these numbers that you're supposedly getting directly from them, and it keeps changing? That's how much they lost. And it came out later in a different, game journalist article, because these people clearly don't communicate with each other. They're competition. They don't want to communicate with each other. They just want to look the best at what they do, which apparently is kind of garbage. It's really difficult for me to take a lot of game journalists seriously. And I know that there are some that are really serious about what they do and they mean well, so I can't really just lump them all in together, but I haven't really come across them too much. But it came out recently that, Crystal Dynamics reported this amount, but they reported this loss also including Marvel Avengers. However, the original articles didn't say also including. They said that Marvel Avengers itself lost them this amount. And that was it. It wasn't, oh, they lost this amount over time, and it's also due to Marvel Avengers. Marvel Avengers played a part in it. No, it was just, they lost this money because of Marvel Avengers. And it's just kind of sad, man. Like, yes, the game is flawed. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. The game is flawed. They really need to do something to turn it around, or the game will end up completely dead. Dead in the water. No recovery. Nothing. That is a fact. That's not something I think is an opinion right now, because if they don't pick it up and do something about it, it will end up dying. And I personally, I love the game. I would like to play it more, but it's really difficult to be invested in a game that you think might be dead or might be dying. And I've done that way too many times. If any of y'all that are listening to this or watching this or what have you have been around since conception of this channel or been around for long enough, you've seen me go through games. Hyper Universe, Breach. I mean, the list kind of goes on. Bless Online. I was so deep into Bless Online as well as Hyper Universe. With Bless Online, I was actually an ambassador for them, and the game just crumbled. And that game launched 3 times. You know what? We're not going to talk about that. Back to the topic at hand. Marvel Avengers. So another issue that I take after saying all of this, saying I do agree with the complaints, I just want this game to do better. These are the things that actually are an issue that they need to fix and they have been fixing, and these are the complaints that actually make sense. After saying all of that, I feel like I need to address this. And this is super frustrating. But the comparison to Marvel Avengers launch to Anthem's launch. Like, Jesus Christ, I did not want to talk about this, but this keeps coming up and it's irksome. So a lot of the people that say this, I wholeheartedly believe were not around playing Anthem at its launch during its beta. I think that a lot of people that say this, one or two, or maybe even a few things are happening here when they're saying it. One, they actually didn't play it during the beta. They didn't play it when it released, and they don't know what they're talking about. They're just doing an echo chamber because it's the thing to say now. It's the thing to actually throw out there. Like, oh, yeah, it's as bad as Anthem, blah, 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 blah. Or two, they played it a little after the release, once a lot of the bad stuff stopped happening and Anthem just sort of dwindled out. The flame just sort of died out. There's still an actual fan base for Anthem, and there's still actually, people who play it to this day. But as far as what it was supposed to be, that never came about. And the sole reason I say that is because people compare the launch of Marvel Avengers to the launch of Anthem, and they are completely different. There's nothing alike in them. Anthem did way worse, and I mean way worse. So here's a little history lesson on Anthem. Once the beta dropped for Anthem, most people could not even play the beta. I was one of the people that pre-ordered it, and I was frustrated as all hell. Could not play the beta. So a lot of people canceled their pre-orders. I didn't, because I was still interested. I was still wanting to actually play the game and find out for myself if I really like this game. This next portion I got lucky on, and it did not happen to me. When Anthem launched, it bricked consoles, meaning it made them unplayable, unusable. They could not use their consoles. People lost their gaming consoles to this game, and yet here we are still comparing the release of Marvel Avengers to Anthem. Like, I don't get where you're coming at with this. And on top of that, now this could still happen, unfortunately. This part could still happen. So Anthem's development team promised, and still does promise, and keeps promising, that they are going to basically breathe new life into Anthem. Kind of like what No Man's Sky did, but No Man's Sky actually did it. Anthem's development team really hasn't done what they said they were going to do just yet. They've changed a few things here or there, but they haven't actually done what they said they were going to do. And again, that can actually happen with Marvel Avengers, but Anthem promised a lot. Marvel Avengers did too, but it's only been out for 2 months versus the years Anthem's been out. 3 months, 3.5, something like that, versus the years that Anthem's been out. No Man's Sky was out for years before it actually did this really big overhaul, but the thing is that they actually, they did it. That's the big issue there. They did it. With Anthem, another thing was, just like Marvel Avengers, the end game became an issue. It wasn't really so much there. So you had the game that was a looter, which Anthem and both Marvel Avengers are, and your loot wasn't that great, which Marvel Avengers addressed almost immediately after people were saying, this my legendaries are better than my epic. Shoot, some of my rares are better than my epic. That doesn't make sense. And it legitimately doesn't in the looting game. It does not make sense. That should never happen. So they addressed it. They fixed it. They changed it. Anthem never really got around to doing any of that. They kept the same few dungeons. They started getting different types of loot, so on and so forth. They changed it a little bit after a while. So I guess it's wrong for me to say they never really got around to doing it, because they did, but they did it way late, way after the issues were already said, and it's like it's dead in the water at this point. You're kind of running stale. But again, people still actually play Anthem because at the core of Anthem, it is, I guess, it is a fun game, but there's just a lot of problems with it. The comparison should stop at them being both looters. Like that's where that comparison should stop, in my opinion. Another thing someone has, I've actually seen this said a lot, and this was like within the first month of Marvel Avengers, and my God, this was frustrating. If the game was not Marvel Avengers and it was just these random classes, would you play it? Yes, yes, I would have. And this, I'm speaking for me personally because I'm a type of person that plays MMOs and I play different classes. That's what I do. That's my thing. That's my niche, and that's kind of what a live service is actually geared towards, people that do that. So yeah, that's an invalid argument, at least for me. For a lot of people, it would be an invalid argument. I do think this, and I will say this, that Marvel Avengers did not know who they were marketing to. They were trying to play off of the whole Avengers name and actually run with that for a while, but they had no clue who they were actually marketing to, who the people were that would want to play this game. They were just trying to base it off of, oh, it's Marvel Avengers. That was stupid of them. That was incredibly, 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 incredibly stupid of them. So here we are now, right? Y'all had no idea who your market really was, and you screwed the pooch, as the saying goes. So I would say in short, but it's already been like 16 minutes, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to drag this on. Marvel Avengers has a long way to go. Do I think it can turn around? Yes, because if you remember, Final Fantasy 14 came out, and it wasn't too hot at first. I mean, it was still good, because it's still good, but there was a lot that they needed to fix, and they did, and now it's just running great, man. There have been some patches that haven't been as great as others, of course, given, but content that hasn't been that great, it's whatever. But it's a great game at its core and what it's doing now. I believe that Crystal Dynamics can do what they need to do, especially with Square Enix backing them, but only time will tell, honestly. Only time will tell. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this. If you got all the way through the video, I appreciate it. If you would like to see more stuff like this, the obligatory like and subscribe, the bell, all that good stuff. I do plan on making content for Marvel Avengers because I like playing around with skills and builds. One of the big things that I want to do is Frost Thorn. I've been working on that, trying to see how well it works. If you would like to catch me streaming, because I stream Marvel Avengers, most recently Godfall, and I also stream Secret World Legends, a few other variety games. The link will be down below in the description. Thank you for your time, and if you do disagree with anything, feel free to say it in the comments. I won't blast you, none of that. We'll just talk about it. Anyway, have a great day, morning, noon, or night, whatever it is, wherever you are.